Here we go, buddy.
Here we go. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you.
Welcome aboard this freezing cold winter train that is the Crushing Iron Triathlon podcast. Did you know it was winter? Because if you didn't, you can just hop on Facebook and see screenshots every 3 seconds.
Yep, it is winter, but man, it was a beautiful sunny day yesterday.
It was gorgeous. And then today is going to be even nicer. I think it's supposed to be close to like mid-50s to low 60s here in Nashville. And you and I are headed out about an hour outside of Nashville to Nunley, Tennessee, a hidden gem outside of Nashville, to do some recon for our upcoming team run retreat.
The run retreat. Man, we got a big, awesome group of people coming.
Dude, I'm so bummed.
It's going to be...
I know that no one's really looking forward to the actual run portion.
Yeah.
But obviously there are 95% of our listeners aren't athletes that we coach and work with, but we have a team, athletes and club athletes. We have 62 athletes, Type A, most of them, coming to Nashville a week from Thursday, and we're going to be doing a run, kind of a run camp / run retreat, Thursday, February 7th through, I think that's the 10th or 11th is that Sunday. And we have a lodge that's going to sleep 38 people, and then 4 cabins to break up the other 20 plus. So it's going to be awesome. I think I'm looking more forward to this than I have any of the other things that we've done, just because of the amount of people that we're going to have, and honestly, the time of year. I mean, it's like everybody's doing stuff by themselves. People are kind of down. Some people I think are probably struggling with motivation. It's cold, but to get out and connect with actual people in person who kind of have the same personality and drive, and to train with them, and then most importantly have downtime to where you're not, hopefully stuck on your phone and your computer and work, and you can get outdoors, and there's lakes and ponds and trails and creeks and just all kinds of things to kind of just hopefully re-energize you outside of, the fun running we're going to do.
Little shot in the arm.
Yeah, much needed.
You said, I always want the Type A thing. What's the opposite of that? Type B person?
Z, maybe?
Type Z? I don't know.
Very, very in control, very anal retentive, like to know the itinerary. Well, here, let me be honest with you. Most Type A people love to have the itinerary. I have found that very few actually read that itinerary. Having put together multiple camps and outlines and created websites and links for people to register with, what I have found is that the number one highest priority in execution is signing up for said event, and then everything else falls very, very low on the threshold of importance to actually details. But we'll take care of it. We'll send that another email on Tuesday after you and I do some recon on the facilities and the lodging and the trails, and we'll get back to them. But no, it'll be great time of year. Like you said, a good shot in the arm, and a great chance to meet other people just like you and connect and make friends, which is honestly, opportunities like that don't happen much anymore in the world we live in. So I'm excited to be able that we can offer it, and I'm excited to participate in it.
Yeah, it's old school.
It is.
It's old school. Let's get together and go running and hang out and get away from Netflix for a while, which I need.
In a little bit, but I guess I'm done with Peaky Blinders.
Done?
Season 5. Is there season 5?
I don't think so.
Oh, then I'm done.
You're caught up, you mean?
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, I'm biking like crazy right now.
That's the saving grace, right?
It is, man. If you're this is like your first time listening, I committed to rewarding myself to only watch Peaky Blinders when I'm riding the trainer. And boy, have I been riding the trainer. I've been putting in some time. I got a couple things next up on the list I need to knock out, but yeah, I do. I need a little bit of time away, and it's nice here. Allie and I are going to try it. My mom's here right now watching Hayden. Allie and I are going to try and go on a hike here in a little bit, but anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I haven't been as aggressive with the trainer, but I have been pretty aggressive with the Netflix. So somehow, I think last night, I rolled my ankle watching Mindhunter in the bed.
Ooh, you must have been an intense episode, like 4 or 5.
I think it was one of those. Yeah, it was. It was. There was a scene that kind of shook me. I think I might have somehow rolled my ankle in laying down.
Like an osmosis injury or something.
Well, those are those weird injuries you always get. Like you just put your socks on and your back hurts.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
You always see those either during your own taper or during like Major League Baseball season.
Mm-hmm.
So and so's on the DL for 3 weeks. Paper cut.
They reached in their bag and cut their finger shave on a razor.
Because baseball players are just total sissies.
Oh boy. We can have a separate cast on that. 162 games of. It's like doing 100 Ironmans in a row. It's like.
Oh my God! Can we just not even say that?
The mental concentration. But before we get off Mindhunter,
that's true.
Can I just say I have 3 words for you? Dr. Wendy Carr in Mindhunter.
Oh, telling you, man.
Dude, that's it right there. If you know where she, her clone is, and you just figure that one out for me.
Yeah. It's send it our way.
Or my way.
Your way, yeah. I got a topic for today. Do you have a topic for today?
Your topic is my topic.
That's how kind of how it usually goes. I do want to thank everyone for the good feedback that we got. I'm just kidding.
I can come up with the topic.
You are. You're like the hidden conductor behind this freight train. I do want to, we got a ton of good feedback, so I'm glad everyone enjoyed our latest podcast, How to Not Suck at Swimming, Part 5.
Oh, yeah.
It was one of the... It is. They're always a favorite. And I got to say, though, I hope, as much as it was your favorite, I hope you get out and I hope you put some of those things to use. We saw a couple posts in our closed Facebook group. You can hop on Facebook and search Crushing Iron Group. And definitely I think that lit a fire under some athletes for sure. But, enjoy it and then apply it. There's hopefully a lot of good information there. What some athletes have done, I know, which I think is a great idea, is listen to Part 1 through 5 in succession. To kind of paint an entire picture of how to not suck at swimming. Mm-hmm. And I think you'd be surprised and happy to know, like how much it could change your approach to the sport in general to be able to see improvement. And that's actually kind of where I was wanting to go to with today's podcast, and why everyone is measuring the wrong thing.
Oh.
One of the podcasts I had posted in the closed group when I returned from vacation was the Joel Filio podcast, and one of the biggest things that really struck me, which I just totally agree with, and he said it in such a great way, in why he doesn't necessarily encourage. Somebody had asked him, do you encourage your athletes to race out of the season? For them the season's long enough already. Like I think all the athletes that he coached, I think for the most part, or at least over 95% are ITU athletes. So the short course, sprint, and Olympic distance, super high level. I think at one point last year he was coaching the 3 top male athletes in the world in ITU. So he's okay at what he does, but they were asking if they, do any half marathons or any cross country races, during their quote unquote off season, which is probably only off. When I say off season, I mean off racing season, because I think one of the first ITU races is coming up here pretty soon, actually. So it's probably only 3 to 4 months. And he said no. He said not so much. They're still training, but they need time away from measuring themselves. And I just thought that was such a great line, and I agree so much in that, especially as a coach and an athlete, that one of the hardest things I think as a coach to communicate with an athlete, because everything you read and everything you're trying to be sold tells you the opposite, in that you should measure everything about your life. Basically, people measure their sleep. And the first thing people do when they a lot of people do, wake up and look at their HRV or their resting heart rate or hop on the scale. You're probably measuring yourself, for a lot of athletes, within the first 2 minutes you're awake.
Sure.
I'm hopping on the scale. I'm checking my app. How many hours did I sleep? Like, you're measuring yourself constantly. And I work with athletes that I've even worked with for years that still struggle with the daily measuring. And my biggest fear with those athletes is burnout, not from physical activity. Because I think when people hear burnout in triathlon, in any sport, they think of, or not, that's not true, not any sport. I think especially in triathlon and endurance sports, when people hear burnout, they hear overtraining, or they hear train too much, or they hear, basically, when you hear somebody's burnt out, it usually correlates in your mind to they're just doing too much physically. But I think the most underestimated aspect of triathlon and how it has become such a gadget, trinket sport with everything you can measure everything, every minute and second of your day. Some people measure, and that is what causes people to burn out, because the amount of it's the same reason in the simplified form. It's the same reason why, and we talked about this, I think, pre-January, I think maybe December, about the perils of weighing yourself daily, and how the most people do it right when they wake up in the morning. They step on a scale and they basically say, I either did a good job or I failed. Which could be,
come on.
But so multiply that by 1 million by measuring so many different aspects of your life. And yes, is data important? Sure. But for 90% of athletes, it's not even close to as important as other aspects of training, which we'll go into. But I just think that before you get all hopped up on measuring your data and obsessed with numbers, you need to measure your level of happiness.
Yep.
I'm serious.
No, I was just going to say, that was going to be like my next line.
Oh, sorry, dude.
It's okay.
Here I am. Thieving in the night.
And healthiness.
And, yeah, measuring your health and how happy you are with your training and your approach. And if you can't master that, then you're fooling yourself with the rest. Mm-hmm. Because it's just decorative. It has no substance. If you can't stay healthy and you can't stay happy, and you are ruining and degrading and punching yourself in the face basically daily by not being happy or not being satisfied or not living up to your own expectations, then you're never going to reach your potential. You have to be happy first. And I don't want to say content, but it is. It's kind of, because I think content is a really misplaced word so much times that it's used as like a negative form. Oh, they're just content.
Right.
Where they are. But it's not. Like, if you're content, it also means you're comfortable. And I think being comfortable is a good thing in terms of, I got my routine down. I'm happy for running. I'm happy to be running. I'm healthy. I enjoy my time, and I'm putting my work in. If you can't master that, then stop trying to master the rest. Because that's like, kind of like how most coaches will say, before, don't try to put the icing before you built the cake. Data is the icing. You got to build the cake first, which means healthy and happy and consistent. And it's actually I see a lot of athletes try to build their cake of data, and then the icing for them is being healthy and happy and consistent, but very few are ever happy because they never get to the icing, because they're always beating themselves up.
I used to go to the pool once in a while and text you afterwards and say, man, I just crushed that swim. And you'd always reply like, oh yeah, what does that mean? Or you crushed it, huh? Or whatever. It was sort of like this, come on, man. But what does that mean? But when you were saying that, it kind of came to me that what I meant by that usually was that I felt awesome and I felt really strong, and I finished strong. And I'm not a big, gadget stats guy, as you know, and usually how I just determine that is if things are going the right direction, and you can tell, if you pay attention. That's how I've always been. I've been a real big pay attention to how I feel and that sort of stuff. I know when I'm getting out of whack, and I don't need data for that. And that's back to that baseball talk. It was like, that's what I think is ruining baseball, is all these analytics and all this crazy stuff. And it's just like, I guess it was natural, though, that it would, all this all these things are happening because there's just so much information and so much technology and ability to go get it. But just because you have the ability to, go after some numbers or whatever, that doesn't mean you always have to. And when I've been kind of using the power meter a little bit just because it's sitting there and I'm on my trainer and whatever. But when I start going outside, I'm just gonna, if I've got intervals, I'm just gonna blast them, and I probably won't even care about my power meter so much. I just need to, like you're saying, man, it's like if you're not having fun with it and if you're not out there and you're feeling good and healthy and stuff like that, these numbers can really be a burden. I've talked to a lot of people that try to ride with power meters for the first, year or whatever, and it makes something like cycling for me, it's a tough one to get going for me anyway. And then the more I have to think about, oh man, I didn't do good today, but maybe I felt like if I wouldn't have been looking at that, I would have probably felt pretty good about my ride. But then, you know what I mean? Like it's really hard to kind of get used to what that even means. People are at a level when, I don't know.
Well, the thing is, and I talk about this again like a lot, is, and I'm sure I'm going to get some hate mail from Wahoo Kicker and Snow, whatever the people that make smart trainers. But
I think you're going to get hate mail from those people.
Probably, yeah, because I'm so anti, or Garmin or whoever. But other people, then that's the other thing part of it, is people pre-measure their vision of success for a workout across the board. Swimming, cycling, running, whatever you use. I can't tell you how many times I read this as a coach daily from not every athlete, but it'll be one athlete a day or something. And it's, I just thought I was going to do more today. And then I always ask him, well, why did you think that? Oh, well, this, and this. I'm like, well, it doesn't make any sense. B, if you expect and measure, if your threshold and unit of measurement is always based on everything has to always be better, then you will never be fulfilled. Ever. In racing and in training, you will never be fulfilled, nor will you ever reach your potential. Because the approach and the mindset and the total stubbornness for most athletes in that, well, last week I did this, so I thought for sure I would be able to beat it today. Okay, well, let's take a step back, and let's think about this critically before you start to measure, and they'll be rolled down about it. Because it's so funny, athletes are really easy to take time off if they really want to, but if they have one bad workout, I said it, I've lost my cycling. It's gone. I've lost it. I don't know what's going on. And then I'm like, well, tell me why. What is leading you to this thought process? And the funny thing about it is that as much as they're data geeks, none of it has to do with actually what they should be seeing. It's the specific interval of the specific workout. And one of the things I love the most to see as a coach is I executed this really, really well. This was the best I had today. And that's, again, why so many of our workouts are structured towards ranges and feel, because it's always going to change. An athlete who has minimal life stress, who has a desk job, who's single, who's coming off, maybe a couple easy days, is going to probably dominate their cycling workout or maybe a tempo run, versus same workout, different athlete, maybe a little bit older, 3 kids, stressful job, been traveling, and then they say, I couldn't beat last week. And the week before they had a really easy week, no stress, slept great. Oh, well, I wonder why. And it's that being content and happy with your effort and mounting continual success. And the ability to do that can only be constructed by your approach, your mindset, and your attitude. If you're going to start creating your own building blocks by hashtag beat yesterday or hashtag one speed fast or hashtag crush it, then you're eventually going to be crushed internally, because you're never going to live up to your own standards or your own standard, I guess in this case, your own standard of measurement. the most successful athletes that I work with every single year, and not coincidentally, the happiest ones, just love to work hard, and that brings them happiness. They rarely ever say, I'm just losing it all, prisoner of the moment, or I should have had this today. Really? Should you have? Because when you work out, guess what's in control? Your body has much more of a say over it than your mind does. But we try to draw, and don't get me wrong, like when you're training, yes, does your mind play a role in it? Sure, but for the most part, it's like a captain on a ship. Yeah, the captain's in control, and yeah, the captain can, move these gigantic barges and freight carriers one way or the other. But if something's off, is that captain, the mind, really going to control the ship, the body? No. It's going to go wherever the heck it wants to, and it's not going to stop. So you've got control, but you don't have the final say. Your body has the final say, and your body is a totally different being and unit every single day you wake up. Because on the flip side, as many days as you've said, I just didn't have it today, and I thought I'd have it. I don't know what's wrong with me. The flip side has also occurred. Man, I don't know how I pulled this off today. I just totally thought, based on your thinking, your stinking thinking, you thought that you wouldn't have it today because you worked hard yesterday, and then you pull one out of the woodworks and just nail it. And it's so much to be said for not judging and measuring everything during, before, and after, and then taking a step back and looking at the whole picture. And that's, I was thinking about today on my run this morning, because on Friday night at our run camp, I'm going to do a presentation, not a huge presentation, but I'm going to go through training peaks and what I kind of look for. And a lot of athletes they like to know what you look for. And I was thinking about how disappointed they're probably going to be. in fact, that it's not going to be some like, bring your graph paper and your Texas Instrument calculator and your protractor, and we're really going to get down to the nitty gritty and do some graphs and some ebb and flow and create some really high tech charts. The first thing I'm going to look at is the broad picture. I'm going to click back and click back and click back and look at your 4 weeks or even 2 weeks. Has it been all green? Do you seem happy? Are you healthy? Are you handling the load appropriate? If you are, then 90% of the analyzing and measuring, here I am doing like air quotes in my office and nobody can see me, that's 90% of it. Reading their mood, reading their energy, either via rating themselves on a scale of 1 to 10 after a workout, slapping a smiley face or a frown face, telling me they're tired, or one of the greatest, something Joe Philly always said, and I heard him say a couple of years ago, was the greatest asset and the greatest tool a coach has in measuring their athletes is just paying attention. And so if you look at athletes' stuff daily and you see an athlete, like for me, because I think it's aggravating, to some athletes, when you offer the opportunity to do ride.
That cut
you
out.
can either do.
You offer the opportunity to what?
To do like a choice ride.
Oh, okay.
You can either do, and I do this sometimes twice a week. You can either just do a zone 1, and it's usually with cycling, because there's a little more room for air and for exploration without risk. I'm not going to be like, you can do a long run of 15 miles or short run of 5, or you can do 800s on the track. With cycling, you get a little more leeway, and it's less risk. But I might say do zone 1 or zone 2, do a zone 1 or zone 2 ride, your choice. And if they choose zone 1 or they choose zone 2, I can usually tell where they really are with their mentally and physically, what they pick. Also, sometimes the weekends I'll give a choice ride and I'll let them pick, ride a Swift race and just go out there and hammer it. here's a main set you can do, or if you're feeling really fatigued, you can just do like zone 1 and zone 2. So you let them choose. So you can actually see also where their mentality is based on what they choose. I wasn't feeling really good today, so I did zone 2. Or on like a Thursday, if I do like a zone 1 or zone 2, I'll look at it immediately, and if they haven't even commented, if they chose the zone 1 day, then and their watts are a little bit lower, their IF is below like 0.6, like I'll just comment like needed that little recovery day, huh? And they're like, oh yeah, dude, my legs were a little bit fried from the run yesterday. Glad I got this today. Get ready for the weekend. Like little things like that are ways that you can allow measurement to happen without the expectation of analysis for the athlete. And that's what the coach should do. And that should be, and I think one of the most underestimated and underutilized aspects of athletes that have a coach is that they should. One of the biggest releases and I guess reliefs of stress or time or obsession should be, I'll just let my coach worry about it. And if you trust them that they're guiding you in the correct way and in the correct path, and they're paying attention, then why are you even worrying about it? And I get that athletes like to know or like to just be aware, and some athletes are very inquisitive. They just like to know. They want to know more, which is great, but not if it's going to just continuously propel them in a direction of self-criticism and daily measurement. That's always going to be negative. Mm-hmm. And it's just not healthy.
The high standards everybody has for themselves, it's like it is unrealistic sometimes, I think. And to have a coach like you looking at it, and I know that you say this a lot, that you're sort of their like governor. You kind of pull back people a lot more than you push them forward, which is interesting to think about in coaching in general, because I think the coach mentality that we always have is that, rambunctious sideline coach going off and pushing people to the limits, and you always see these Nike commercials that are just like off the charts, with people sweating and busting their ass the whole time, and that just doesn't seem to play a part in this as much. And it's that, I guess we see that image and that vision in our head all the time about and I said it before, but that's kind of the irony of our podcast sometimes. The crushing part is that, crushing to us is almost a little bit of a definition. It's sort of like crushing consistency or nailing workouts in a way that you can keep doing them and being stronger and just incrementally keep getting stronger, because as you're saying, sometimes the mind isn't there. And in that analogy with the ship, you can turn it, but you just can't turn it today. It's going to take a few days, and I think that's the same thing that kind of goes into play with racing, I think, too. How you can be at mile 2 just not feeling it, and then, it's sort of like if you let your mind take over there and decide that you're done for the day, that might be the worst way to look at that, because if there's a long race ahead of you still, and just be patient, and maybe you'll sort this thing out. Maybe your body will wake up. There's different ways to kind of, quote unquote, turn that thing around a little quicker or whatever. I mean, it's all relative depending on,
Yeah. Have you ever seen a cruise ship turn on a dime?
No,
they can't. It's impossible.
But the point is that you got to start making the turn, right?
Right. You just can't expect it to be. You just can't expect to turn it around in a second. You've got to acknowledge the amount of work and effort that's gone into getting you this direction, and that it's going to take the same to get it turned around. And again, that's like the society that we live in now, and it's instant. I think one of the biggest issues I have with almost all things is the obsession with instant feedback, instant results. Mm-hmm. There is no such thing as instant results. Everything takes time. And if you think or you thought that today was your instant result, then take a step back and look at all the work you did for the months and months prior. Nothing you do is instant. Nothing you do, like, it's, they have that, like, whatever the quote is or phrase, like, there's no such thing as overnight success.
Right.
You just didn't see all the work and stuff that they did the last 10 years, to like come out of nowhere and keep doing it. It's like, it's especially like, I think, talking about like other sports, you see it most often in like the NBA and the NFL. These guys that you never ever heard of in college, they're nothing. Probably like, just on, teams that aren't the Power Five or, at other, places that you wouldn't really pay attention to, all of a sudden in like their rookie or second year, like, who the heck is this?
Mm-hmm.
But they just kept working. And had they paid attention and taken hold of the, I'm not there yet, I'm not great today, they would have quit. But they weren't obsessed with being it tomorrow. They weren't obsessed with, instant results the next day. Well, if I go out and do these passing drills, or I go out and do, make 500 jump shots, it's gonna turn on tomorrow. I'm gonna be great. It was, if I continue to do all these small things and I enjoy what I do and I have a passion and a drive for committing to get better, then one day I hope I get my chance. And they usually do. They usually work that hard. They usually continue, and they have much longer careers than I think the athletes you see that probably don't work as hard or didn't have to work that hard to get there. Mm-hmm. And I think there's just this misconception of, I have to be great tomorrow, and because everybody else says they are. And I'm like, just look, like, everybody wants to improve, but very few people have the mindset and I think just the flat out love for, you can say process if you want. Like, I think it's an overused word sometimes, but it's like, you just have to fall in love with what you're doing and what makes you happy and just how good it feels. I think like the most underrated aspect of people who train consistently, or the people who train inconsistently, is the lack of appreciation that they have with the value and the characteristics that it takes for a person to just wake up and want to be better and do better every day, and the lasting effect that can have on them in everything that goes beyond just sport. Because it defines people. Just the same as defines people who you see that are lazy, who take what they have for granted. And I mean, I talk about this all the time with athletes that get injured or have life stresses, and I just always remind them, that's why we're consistent when we can be consistent. Because if you take that for granted, because so many times we try to kind of like merge our entire mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, life, work, play, hobbies. We think we have control over converging them all together in one big pot of harmony, to where this is just how great life is going to be. And things are going to be great. But ultimately, something, because we don't have control, is going to go awry, go amiss. And you're not going to have control. So if you don't have the effort to try to just be consistent every single day, then you're going to really, really regret not having that attitude when you can't be consistent when you want to, because you're moving, you're changing jobs, you're going through crazy life stress, you're sick. On the same time, I think we talked about it last week, it's the same thing about going on vacation. It's like, you won't have to beat yourself up, because that's why we're consistent, because you can like build that in. But it's just, again, measuring yourself daily. Stop, like, people do it. I guess I just don't understand it. because I've never really been that way. I understand the data, and I know that it's important because as a coach, I see the value in it. But the last thing I want to do when I get done with the workout is look at it. I want to sit and walk around and enjoy the accomplishment of just doing and just being first.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you and I kind of share this same love with outdoor cycling when we ride together. The first thing I look for on when we go to the trace is what? Like when we get done. If we look at we look at elevation.
Oh yeah. I was going to say where to go to breakfast.
And that too. It's like, but like the last thing I want to do is like immediately judge myself.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you want to just put that off or just not even do it? Like, take a glance at it, but like today I went and ran like an hour and 15. I didn't look at my watch once. I got home, I hit stop, I saw what my overall average pace was, I hit reset, I walked in, I haven't looked at it since. And I won't look at it for a couple of days or probably until next week. Because every day matters, but is today the only thing that matters? And I think that's like where things can get really confusing and overwhelming and kind of hypocritical, I think, in how we look and analyze and data and how much effort coaches. Can I just say something?
Go ahead, buddy.
Like, if looking at data is important because you can see a lot of things and you can see trends. But if a coach tells you they spend 3-4 hours analyzing your data every single day, they're full of shit. Because that's just not the case.
No?
It's not that hard. What are you going to analyze on a 30-minute Zone 2 run there, Poncho? That's what I thought. Like, you got to look at the whole picture. And I just think there's this obsessive, like you feel like you're more important because you have more metrics. That's not really the case. Like, athletes been doing it for forever and they don't even use it. And a lot of the great athletes on the planet don't use it. But as age group athletes, especially, I feel like it helps some athletes feel like they're bridging the gap between I'm just an age grouper to I can also use what the pros use. That mentality. But just be happy with what you've done. And don't immediately analyze what you didn't do or why you couldn't or you're not where you thought you should be. Because of the reality of the situation is, if you went out and ran or you went out and ride or you swam and you did your best, then you are exactly where you should be. And you should be happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a way to look at that is we're talking about how to measure yourself, and just measure yourself by the fact, like you went running. You went out and did it today, right? I mean, that's how I would measure that. You know, I get in the club, I get a lot of comments like, that always start with "sorry." I had this hour swim today, and I was running behind. I had to pick up my kids or whatever, and I only got 42 minutes in, and I'm like, huge win.
Huge win.
But you only had 45 minutes to get an hour swim in, and you actually went and did it. It would have been so much easier to say, well, I can't get that in, so I'm just going to bag it, but, the work always shows up, man. The little things, and like you're saying about the 10-year overnight success. And it's so funny how, there's outliers at every race, that people that maybe didn't train like they should have, that just like for some reason that everything came together that day, and there's some that train perfectly and fall apart. But for the most part, what shows up on race day is what you did, the months before it. And it's hard to quantify that, I think, and in any other way other than just doing stuff every day and being consistent with it and going after it as best you can. Just because you can't hit some crazy watt number or hit some top speed on your interval run, or swim as long as you thought you could. You can only do so much, man.
You can only get better if you're able to have the mental and emotional fortitude and happiness with strength to continue to work hard.
Right. And there's a big thing about that with me is like, if I know where I'm at as far as in shape, and if I start seeing, intervals and hard stuff, and I don't try to hit what I thought I could be or whatever. I just really try to keep that under check, as in, if it says go hard as you can or whatever, hard as I can doesn't mean as hard as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a huge thing, is like, if you can't hit a silly interval target today and your race isn't for 4 months, I mean, why would we let that get us down? I mean, and I get it. It's sort of like you have your targets along the way, but it can be overwhelming. It's almost like it is almost like creating a race every day, and the psyche behind that can really wear you down big time. It's like, if you got a big project you're planning at work, you can't have it done tomorrow. It takes 6 months sometimes to put all the variables together.
And there's two things about that. It's such a great point. And racing is where work and ability collide. It's both.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this will probably offend some people, but that's okay. I offend my wife daily. When you see athletes who post, I only worked this much. I only worked this much. I only did 6 hours this week, and look at me, I finished this Ironman. And there are other athletes who and maybe it was like a decent time. And then you see other athletes who just worked their tail off. And where they are in their athletic journey and finding themselves and figuring out who they are and where they are, and their time was slower. I have infinitely more respect and would be so much prouder of an athlete who worked hard to meet their ability than an athlete who took for granted their ability and the work and went out and because to me, your time is a disappointment. Because you didn't work hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got a time, but you know what would have been a more truer, respectful indicator of your true ability and showing of, well, obviously your lack of work ethic, but if you could put it all together, like how much you're taking for granted. Like that was one of the things that like really hit home with me when I was listening to the David Goggins podcast. He was talking about, what do you want God to judge you when he sees you? And he was like, his biggest fear was like all the things he didn't do or didn't work hard at. Mm-hmm. And so there are always going to be people out there who can naturally just do things that you may not ever be able to do athletically. But in no way, shape, or form on any planet does it mean they're better than you. It just means they're taking everything for granted, period.
Mm-hmm.
And they're totally underutilizing and underusing what they've been given, and they are wasting opportunities after opportunities.
Yeah.
And then the second thing was what you're saying about mentally, in this time of year and seeing intervals and stuff. The athletes that I have worked with or that I do work with that daily measure themselves or are super critical of themselves rarely ever are able to dig so deep on a race day. Because in order to dig, as I was having this conversation earlier we had an athlete that raced in a half marathon and we were texting back and forth and he said, happy to PR. I think I wasn't mentally ready at this stage of the season to dig that big of a hole. Overall, I'm really pleased. Feels like a big step in my running since we started working together, and this was a nice confirmation of that foundation being built. Great race, great execution, PR. But the part that stuck out about me was I don't think I was mentally ready at this stage of the season to dig that big a hole. And I said, you're right, you're not. And that's perfect. Because digging that hole, not just physically, but again, and I know we talked about this before, but putting yourself out there mentally, emotionally, and just emptying the tank altogether, the cumulative tank, not just the physical tank. But if you're listening and you've dug that hole before, you know how painful it is. You know, and that's why you see people like overcome with emotion sometimes. It's not pain, it's that they just emptied it all out. They laid it on the line. Mentally, emotionally, physically. And if you daily put yourself on the line to judge, you're not going to have it. And it's not practice for race day. It's just you're deteriorating your ability to be able to mentally, emotionally go to the well. They all connect. You can only burn a few physical matches each year. We say that, we use that analogy a lot. You can only burn a few matches each year. You can only really go to the well a couple times a year and go really, really deep. You could probably go halfway down the well 7 or 8 times, but you'll never be able to go all the way because you put too much out there when you do. The same goes for like the mental and emotional investment. You can't go to the mental and emotional well every day. You can't burn a mental and emotional match every single day by judging and expectations and resenting that you're not where you should be, or, oh my God, I'm sick in January, my Ironman is in like November, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, it'll eat you alive. And when it's done with you, you're not going to have anything else to provide, and you'll have nothing to show for the work that you did because you let it rot the whole way there.
That's good. Did you? I always we cite the Patriots, quite a bit on how they prepare and what they do and stuff. Did you? And I know you hate them because of the Dolphins.
I don't hate them.
You respect what they do because
I do. Did
you watch the game the other day? Now, this is what I noticed. What you were just saying right there about going to the well. Like if you take that as a microcosm of one game, and what I noticed was when I was watching the first half, I noticed that the Patriot running backs, they weren't quote-unquote fighting for that extra yard all the time. If they would get outside and maybe pick up 6 on first down, I noticed that they were, kind of like would run out of bounds and, they'd try and get whatever, but they didn't like crush themselves on every play. And I think they knew because if they could get themselves into 2nd and 4, they were always in a good spot, It's kind of like with training, if you can get yourself to a good mental place where you've got something left, and that's sort of like racing too, right? And we talk about them all the time, but man, it's like I think that their approach and the work that they put in, and they get the best out of everybody they got. And they, I always joke around as like, Brady's throwing to guys like me and you out there, it seems like half the time. And he's just, they're just getting the most out of all their ability. And I think that that's so underrated. I mean, I look at all these NFL teams and all I listen to sometimes, hear these things. We need an impact maker, a player, a game changer, all this kind of stuff. And I think the reality is that most NFL teams probably have enough talent to get the Super Bowl. They just haven't figured out how to do the work. And run the right system and play within themselves and all that stuff.
And when you panic, you make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And they do the reverse. They don't panic, and they don't make mistakes, and they just wait for you to. And they just do it all game long. And like the best, like another analogy I think you take from that is like they experiment with things in the first half to be able to execute when it matters more to get more of a return in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't panic like they have to be winning the first quarter. The only score that matters is when it hits 0.
Yeah.
There are a lot of college teams that do that too. They'll even though they might be a little bit behind, they'll just run and try to tire, the opposing defensive front linebackers out. And by the end of the game, they just can't stop you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they can hold on the ball. So in triathlon and in training, it's like, again, it's that long game. It's that, it's one of our favorite phrases. It's the slow burn. You can't just light a match every day and burn it and throw it in the trash and be done with it and expect to not get burnt, and burnt out. I would just encourage you, if you're listening and you find yourself measuring every moment of your day and every breath and every, blood lactate thing and every watt and every pace and every yard per 100. Like, if you're stuck measuring that every day, and I know this is hard because everywhere we look says you got to know the data. Get back to what's going to allow you to even put that to use. Find yourself healthy, find yourself happy, find yourself in a position, because I can't tell you how many times I've started working with an athlete and they're all about data. I'm like, dude, I can't even tell, because you work out for a week and then you don't work out for 2. You work out for a week and you don't act with 2. I'm like, I get nothing from that besides the fact that you have the innate inability to be consistent. Like, that's the data point. If you want to carry about data and numbers, look at how consistent you are and your either ability or inability to be consistent. Because before you start to try to be a number cruncher and a data bragger, I can get this many watts and this many. Do me a favor. Count how many sessions you can do without missing one. See how many weeks you can string together without missing one. See how many weeks you're able to create in a healthy, happy way where you can increase your volume. Those are all indicators and easy data points to see at fitness. Now they're not brag worthy. No one likes to see those because you can't post them every day because it's big. We're talking big picture. So before you get all hopped up on data crack, take a minute and step back and look at the most important aspect of the cake. Create the cake and then worry about the icing later, because it's going to be more fulfilling. And if you and just in like the most simplest term, like, don't you just want to be freaking happy? Because I fear, and I've said this to I think 2 or 3 athletes before, I'm scared for you in your triathlon athletic journey because you're never happy. You're never happy with yourself. You're never happy with your training. You're always self-critical. And I can't think of a worse place to be. And as a coach, it eats you up because you can't help but want to help them change that mentality and help them find that self-appreciation and that joy and that love, because it's so much more fulfilling, and it leads to so many other awesome avenues and success, and it's just so much better. Like, it's so much more fun than, Jordan was happy. Jordan was great, but did you ever rarely ever see the guy happy? He's pretty much a big fat grump. I mean, it's the truth. It's like, be happy and love what you do, and it's okay. Like, it's okay to be happy. It's okay to love what you do. It's okay to be healthy. So look at those things.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because that's sort of what David Goggins talks about too. Is like, it's interesting because he's like, oh, people always ask me all the time, you seem so unhappy. You're not happy. He goes, look, he goes, I'm on a mission, and I'm very, I'm not jumping around for joy all the time, but I'm content where I'm at. And I think a lot of times, quote unquote, the journey to be the ultimate person you can be is not an easy road. And it's sort of that, do you want to be the best? If that's the case, then you gotta live a whole different life. Like you're talking about with Jordan. I mean, it's just work, and it'll pay off probably, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna be happy. And how many people in triathlon really, honestly, should be shooting for that, top slot at Kona? You know what I mean? It's like this can be so much more enjoyable, and I fall into that trap a little bit. Not that I think I can be top slot or anything, but it's like I always talk about Kona, and that gets in my head and all that sort of stuff. And the reality is like, I don't necessarily think, it's sort of, I realize that isn't what makes me happy. I thought it would, but I've realized over time that what makes me happy is being able to go out and have enjoyable workouts and things that don't hurt and don't stress me out all the time, and with these crazy goals that, premature goals and stuff like that. And it's kind of like what you're saying with the pre-measuring success. It's like that's just the work will show up over time.
And if you keep showing up.
Yeah, if you just keep showing up, and that kind of stuff takes care of itself, And to have your head in that place, I think is like you're saying right out the gate, it's not measuring the right things, and it's an undue burden that we carry. I didn't sleep. I snored 8 times last night on my app. That makes me a bad person. So I got to get that down to 6.
Yeah, just didn't have that quality sleep. Like, dude, if you hadn't even looked at it, you'd have woke up and been like, dude, I feel great today.
Yeah, those are...
It's like we just allow so much interference before we take any action in our day, and you wonder why people are so unsatisfied and lack a true deep belief within themselves, because they leave it up to an app that somebody made 6,000 miles in a different country at 3:00 in the morning in a factory to tell them how they're doing today.
Yeah, you talk about it all the time, but it's like, don't judge your day by the first thing that happens or you think about. Your day's not over if it's not starting how you envision it.
Yep, coach yourself how you should coach your kids. Did you have fun? Did you do your best? Good for you. Because if you want to run your kids into the ground, that was like one of the biggest things that was the reason I got so burnt out on swimming. And I remember this like it was night and day. And I was very, very, very good swimmer. And when I would even like now like go back and like watch like VHS recordings, and I'd win like 25, 50 frees or back over, and sometimes I'd win by like a half length of the pool. And you get out and you walk over and you're not just dominated. And I'd walk out, and on the video my dad'd be like, good job, but wasn't a personal best, wasn't a this, wasn't that, was then that's how that was ingrained in me for my whole swimming career. And it's ended up being why I quit, because I never felt that the approach I had then, obviously as a kid and up to 14, like it was never that of fulfillment. It was always that of meeting an expectation, but meeting an expectation is never fun or fulfilling either. And
it probably scared you. You probably had fear going into that day because you wouldn't, in case you didn't just crush everybody or whatever the case was. I mean,
I did. It's changed the way that I approach a lot of things in life, and definitely like, as Hayden gets older and picks whatever sport he wants to play, if he wants to play one, it's just there's so much to be learned that we can teach ourselves that we forget along the way, and a lot of it comes from just taking ourselves way too seriously.
We may need more participation medals.
Way too seriously, man. It's like, dear God.
I know, man. When I played baseball, if I didn't go 4 for 4, I was like killing myself.
Yep.
It's all that individual pressure we put on ourselves, and it's like how we think. It's that striving for perfection thing. If you would have only won some of those races by a quarter length instead of a half, you might have enjoyed it more. A lot of pressure, man. There's no reason to put that kind of pressure on ourselves out here.
There's enough of it already.
Yeah. So just go out and do what you can do today.
Seriously, go out, enjoy the sunshine. Do something without an expectation, and just do it for the pure joy, and appreciate it. Appreciate yourselves. Appreciate the work you do. Appreciate the journey, and as such, we appreciate you being on our journey and our podcast and listening along. And we'll be with you every Monday and Thursday as we have been for 2.5 years. And if you like what you hear, we'd appreciate it if you'd hop on over to iTunes, or even while you're listening to me talk right now, give us a review. Those are always helpful along this free podcast journey, so we can keep it ad-free, commercial-free, besides our normal, 10-minute intro about sports you don't care about. And we got a few days left, I guess, of our club deal of $2.99. So if you're on the fence, hop off the fence. 1, because it's probably uncomfortable. 2, because it's a great deal. You can go to crushingiron.com and check that out. The club tab is all the way to the right, and it's a great deal. And who wouldn't want to work with Mike Trolley every single day?
There you have it. Yep, I'll talk you off the fence.
That's right, talk you off the fence.
Mm-hmm.
We have more info on camps, the swim analysis, swim camp, blog, videos. If you have any questions about coaching or training, you can always reach out to me directly, c26coach@gmail.com. Or if you need anything from Mike, crushingiron@gmail.com.
Pretty simple.
Peace.
All right.
Dance.
Oh, no.
All right, dude. I'll catch you later.
All right, buddy. See you, man.
See you, man.